So after what happened to you, which was horrendous because I went through something similar, at the end of it, like me, you decide to yourself, I need to move on. I've got to find something else to do. I've got bills to pay. It was like me, your career went. Um, you then found something else to do. Can you tell me about that? Because this is the bit I'm really, really interested in.
Right. Well, I was desperately trying to think of something I could do. What I knew I didn't want to do, because that was the summer of lockdown, the first lockdown, remember? And I'm lucky enough to have space around me. I've got a garden, and I'd been spending my time in lockdown out in that garden, just manually working, just because chopping trees and God knows what, cutting grass. And I knew as soon as everything happened to me that I could not bear to be in an office. I couldn't bear to be, I just knew I had to be out of doors, because I knew being out of doors helped me, manual work helped me. So I thought, what can I do? What can I do? And particularly at that time, because it was lockdown, one of the opportunities that was going was driving, because people needed things delivered. And a friend of mine said something like, you could learn to drive an HGV, and you could transport horses and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, I can actually just learn to drive an HGV, and I could just be an HGV driver. And we were like, yep, yep, yep. And she was like, yeah, I can see that suiting you. So that's what I did. I instantly Googled HGV training. And that's what I did. I signed up for HGV driver training. I did my certificate of professional competence, which just basically involves sitting for 35 hours, watching absolutely horrendous, horrific videos. Not just that, but learning how to load and all this sort of technical stuff and physics and things. But a lot of it was watching horrendous videos, which is supposed to teach you, don't even glance at your mobile phone, because this is what happens. And it's quite impactful. And yeah, so I did that. And then I went for a week's training, didn't pass that time. And of course, it was hard to get the tests and the training because it was locked. So after a couple of months, I got another training week, another test, and one hiccup in that one, failed, and then a couple of weeks later I passed. So that's what I do now. I've become an HGV driver. I don't do it all the time. I do also do just small deliveries and vans and things some of the time. But I've got my HGV license, and I absolutely love it. It's being outdoors. It's using my brain in a different way. I have to focus really. You have to be aware and focusing all the time. You don't have time to sort of mull over things that are angering you and upsetting. You just don't have time. You got to think about the road.
Give me describe a traditional day as a HGV driver. So you turn up to your depot. Give me a couple of minutes of what that day looks like.
Well, a lot of it will depend on what kind of delivery place it is. So I've worked for a beer company, so I would turn up at the depot. The first thing you do is you check your lorry, you check your truck, and you have a whole kind of a regular list of checks. You have to make sure everything's operating, everything's in good order. There's nothing dangerous about the truck. So that's always the first thing you do. And then you basically, if it's pallet deliveries, well, for the beer company, they would load the lorry with forklifts. And there I had a second man, which is your sort of co-driver, although they didn't drive, I did the driving. So we would go to each drop, unload the kegs. He would chuck and I would catch, and we would just unload at various different drops. And with pallets, I tended to be doing that on my own, because I wouldn't usually have a second man for pallet deliveries. So you'd have a pallet truck. So you'd be getting those off the tailgate of the lorry. Again, just going around, always checking your time to make sure you're not going over your driver hours, because that's all quite strict, because you've got your little card and it has to go in the machine. And other things, I mean, I've driven, the most recent one I did, I was driving for a pipe supply company. So I was off to the Highlands with a load of pipes, and then somebody would be there with a forklift to take it off, and I would be helping them get it off. And it's just great because, I mean, especially in this part of the world, it's a lovely part of the world. I'm driving through it. It's and yeah, it's just delivering things that people need, and it's great.
And you get all that time on your own in the cabin looking at beautiful countryside. And if you're anything like me, you would use all that time thinking, sorting your life out, understanding what happened here, or planning for the future, or thinking about your kids. You have all that time that you would not normally have in a day because you're doing stuff.
That, yes, there's definitely an element of that, but as I say, it's not to the extent that, you know, you can. I mean, somebody said to me, "Are you thinking of books while you're driving along? Are you planning thoughts, planning new books?" And I'm thinking, well, I never really have time to do that, because if I start sort of drifting off the way I used to when I was a writer, sort of thinking about, oh, these characters could do this, and like, you know, next thing you know, somebody's overtaking me, and I'm, you know, so it's good in that it's kind of calming because of having to focus and having to think about all the technical stuff. You know, watch your tail swing, you know, watch your hours, check your wing mirrors, stay off your mobile phone, and it's all that. While it's actually quite restful, because you cannot chew over things in that kind of unhealthy way that you might be doing if you were sitting at a desk, you know, constantly to go on Twitter or something, and worrying about things, and fretting about the last thing you said or did. You can't do that, but it is good. But on another level, you're right, it is calming because you're focusing on this stuff and the other stuff is going underneath, and you're sort of, yeah, you're sort of thinking, you are focusing on the road, but you think, and it's great. And thinking about next weekend, I'll go and see the kids, I'll take a drive, I'll come down this way. And yeah, it's really, I like it. I kind of wish I'd started earlier, to be honest.
It sounds like you really, really enjoy it.
I really do enjoy it. I enjoy it enormously. And I like, I've never met anyone I don't like in the college industry. It's just, yeah, everybody's really helpful. Nobody's sexist, you know? It's like, they just kind of expect you to do the job. They get on with the job. They know, like, for instance, they know that, like, if there's an enormous keg, I'm not going to be able to move it. So, right. So they don't make a fuss about that. They're just like, right, I'll throw, you catch. That's okay. You know, and I don't have to say, I'm a weak and feeble woman, I can't throw the keg. He's just like, no, I'll throw and you catch. You know, because
there'll be some small weak men who can't do that either, who are driving HGVs. We always make exception for people we know are struggling to do something or not to do it. You know, we always make exception.
Yeah. If you know somebody's got a sore arm or a shoulder or something, you're going to do more of it.
Yeah,
exactly.